Hello everyone and welcome to SkillCapped. I'm Notorious Dub and I'm sure you guys have heard a ton of times that deathmatch is one of the best ways to warm up and practice for Valorant. And honestly, you'd be completely right. It is one of the best ways to warm up and train, but it's not that simple, which is why today you guys are going to learn the best ways and the best tips to help you guys warm up effectively and the best strategies to use to make sure you're effectively warming up and getting better instead of hurting yourself and making yourself worse in the game through bad deathmatch strategies. And today we're going to cover everything from having proper mindset when playing to all the mechanical benefits you should be focusing on improving through your deathmatch games. And at the end, I'm actually going to be teaching you guys how to play for the win in deathmatch instead if you just feel like being a deathmatch warrior and destroying your games. But as always, before we get too deep in the video, we have to talk about our question of the day. And today I was wondering, what is your guys' favorite way to warm up for ranked, if you have one at all? Personally, I start with about 15 minutes of aim training on Kovacs or Aim Lab, which we have videos on both for on this channel. And then I do a little flicking and movement in the practice range to translate my aim into the game. And then I'll play a game or two of deathmatch to get used to my peaks, movement, and shot pacing. And I feel perfectly primed to play after that warm up. But I know you guys have different habits and strategies than me, which is exactly why I want to hear from you. So let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite way to warm up for ranked in Valorant? Now, first of all, and most importantly, if you're going to improve, a growth mindset is imperative, and all of the top athletes across every sport has this mindset. And to put it simply, it really just means that you believe your talents can be developed, whether it's through hard work, good strategies, or analysis. And honestly, the fact that you're on this channel watching this video probably means you have a growth mindset, at least to some degree. But to really improve, you have to take it that little step further and stop worrying about your results and start worrying about improvement. And the best person to watch if you struggle with this is Tenz, because Tenz constantly is picking out things he's doing wrong or his team is doing wrong and will focus solely on that aspect, even if it makes him worse slightly in the short term. And that's what you have to realize. You can continue to do what's comfortable for you right now and perform consistently, but altering your playstyle and strategies to something more beneficial long term is going to stunt your performance for now. But when you're efficient and comfortable with the changes you've made, then you're going to be far better off in the end game. So for all the strategies we're going to be talking about in the video, keep this in mind. You may perform slightly worse short term because you're spending more brain power focusing on what you're changing, but you will rapidly improve by the time you get comfortable with these changes. And remember, if you're serious about improving, then go to SkillCapped.com to unlock our hyper improvement system that will teach you how to win more gunfights, master your agent, and so much more. It's also backed by our rank improvement guarantee, so you really have nothing to lose. So come join over 500,000 satisfied members of SkillCapped. Improve that KDA and get the rank you have always wanted at SkillCapped.com. Link is in the description below. And the first strategy I want to emphasize that you should work on is view deathmatch as your peaking practice. Now, you can start off in the practice range to learn the basics of peaking, but getting used to the exact angles in the game is the next step. So there are three types of peaks, and I'm going to call them Ferrari peaks, swinging peaks, and perfect peaks. Now, to start with, even in my Immortal and Radiant games, I see the majority of people Ferrari peaking, and it losing them a ton of fights whenever they slip up and peak this way. And a Ferrari peak is when you're swinging out past the angle as fast as possible and continuing the peak until your brain recognizes an enemy in your field of view and then stopping and shooting. Now, this is so inefficient because it takes the average person about 200 to 250 milliseconds to react to the sensory input of seeing someone on the screen, and that's when the muscles begin the movement of reacting properly. And it also takes time to slow down and stop before your shots are accurate in game. So instead of waiting on your brain to tell your hands to stop moving so you can shoot, you can peek out and slow down preemptively to reduce that time to kill window. And this is what I call swinging peaks, because you're constantly swinging out little by little, clearing sections of the angle over and over, but you're stopping multiple times throughout the angle to prepare to shoot if someone pops up in your vision. And this is going to be the second most efficient peak, and it's going to be what you're using to clear off angles and unfamiliar areas in general. But finally, we have the perfect peak, where you position yourself to peek a specific spot on the field where you expect an enemy to be. Preemptively put your crosshair on where that area is and swing perfectly out to the angle at a 90-degree peak so you're coming out as fast as possible, and stopping perfectly where you can see the angle and nothing more. This is the perfect peak because you're moving as fast as possible, stopping as early as possible, and not opening yourself up to any other angles. And this should be the go-to peak that you should be working into your playstyle more and more as you get comfortable with the map, and you should be using this every chance you get. But off that same line of thinking, deathmatch is the perfect place to practice your crosshair placement because perfect peaks require perfect crosshair placement to be optimal. And the best way to practice your crosshair placement is to constantly predict where the next angle an enemy is going to be playing at and try to keep your crosshair at head level while you're walking into view or past that angle. And when you're practicing crosshair placement, try to keep your crosshair too high instead of too low, because when you're aiming too low, more times than not, you'll resort to just spraying down the enemy's body instead of going for the head because that's where you're already aiming. But if you're too high, you instinctively force yourself to correct to the enemy's head because you don't have a body to immediately shoot at, and over time, you will correct yourself appropriately. So if you find yourself struggling with proper crosshair placement, start by aiming upwards until you're uncomfortable with how high you're looking, as long as it's not too much, and slowly work your crosshair back down as you play until you find the area that is perfectly aligned with the enemy head level. Now this is going to slow you down right now, but if you're not already aiming at head level, you're slowing down your playtime tremendously as is, and it's skyrocketing your time to kill for no reason. So make a change and focus on only pre-aiming and holding your crosshair at head level for the enemies. And speaking of head level, you should have at least 1 or 2 deathmatch games every day where you focus on hitting headshots only. And I've had a ton of people tell me this was a game changer for them, because you have to get yourself in the mindset of, if it's not a headshot, I don't even want the kill. Because remember, the goal isn't to win the deathmatch, the goal is to improve, and hitting your headshots is the best way to win ranked games, so you might as well ingrain that habit while you're playing in your deathmatch and improving. So stop spraying enemies down and focus on tap firing or 3 to 4 round bursts where you're only focused on hitting the enemy's head with the first shot and then correcting to the headshot before the recoil gets too bad. And then swapping up your weapon to the ghost or the sheriff is another great way to train yourself to focus on hitting headshots, because body shotting someone with a sheriff takes way too long when you're pacing your shots for accuracy. And keep in mind, it's okay to only get 10 kills in a deathmatch if you're using a sheriff, because you're improving. And whenever you pick that phantom or vandal back up and maintain that headshot focus that you've been working on, your kills and score is going to skyrocket and the games are going to get way easier. Think of the sheriff as your ankle weights. You put them on and you start training, performing way worse than you want to, but as soon as you take them off, you start tearing through the competition because you're already instinctively going for those headshots and hitting them way faster than you normally would. But of course, headshots aren't the only way to kill people in Valorant, and spray control is very important as well, especially if you're a phantom player. And think about how many times you've hit 4 shots on the enemy's body and struggled to get that last hit before you were killed. And being able to convert those 4 shots into 5 and getting a kill is a difference in a ton of 1 games. So take that phantom and vandal, try to hit headshots if you want to for the first shot, but commit to your fights completely and spray down as much as possible. When you're focusing on spray control, try to play mid-range or longer angles, especially on maps like Ascent or Haven. And don't worry if you're dying and getting third party a lot because you're overcommitting to fights. The goal is to focus on your spray down and your spray tempo. But remember, practicing spray control doesn't mean committing to fights with all 30 bullets in your clip. Whenever you feel like your spray is out of control and completely random, stop spraying and reset your aim, and then you can re-peak for the fight. Or you can just set yourself a shot limit. With the Phantom, I would suggest somewhere around 9 bullets, which is where once you've sprayed 9 bullets, then you let your spray reset and you continue the fight. That way you're working on finishing fights in 9 bullets and conditioning yourself to stop crossing your fingers to hit another bullet with a very inconsistent and randomized spray pattern, and you're actually training the way that you're going to be fighting in game. In game, if you commit to a 30 bullet spray down, you're probably going to lose it or get killed by someone else. So keep those fights efficient, 9 bullets, and then let it reset. And finally we have shot tempo, which is a very overlooked strategy because a ton of people are swapping back and forth from the Phantom and Vandal and not realizing they have different shot reset timings, and it's making them less efficient in game. When you're tap firing, the Vandal has a much faster tap efficiency rating, allowing you to get shots off much faster and maintain that first bullet accuracy. And the Phantom has a faster spray reset rating, allowing you to get back into your spray downs with accuracy a bit faster than the Vandal does. So focus on getting as many accurate shots off right when your accuracy resets. Don't worry if you constantly start back fights with bullets going over the enemy's head at first. Once you get the timing down perfectly, it's going to take your time to kill down across the board. And it's also important to think about how your shot tempo would be in a game. Like if Tenz uses a Vandal, if an enemy pops into his line of sight, we constantly see him change movement direction, flick to the enemy, get 2 shots off, and then stop moving and make accurate shots immediately after. This way he's crossing his fingers, getting an accurate flick off, 2 shots while he's changing movement directions while he's still accurate, all the while getting a little bit of movement in to throw the enemy's aim off, and then stopping and getting his accurate shots off when he's corrected his crosshair placement and buffered that window like we talked about earlier. And this is the go-to shot tempo we see him so used to because he's trained it so much, and I would recommend you develop a shot tempo like this one that you can train over and over. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but you should come up with something that works for you so you can buffer those windows and get as many accurate shots off as possible. But finally, for all you deathmatch warriors, the easiest way to win a deathmatch is through area control. Find an area on the map that is a high traffic traffic area like window on Haven or hookah or U-Haul on Bind, and focus on controlling that area, peeking angles over and over, and letting the enemies come to you. A ton of your downtime that is affecting your kills in deathmatch is the result of rotating to a high traffic area, dying along the way, spawning, over peeking, and continuing the cycle. So whatever high traffic area you spawn near, go to that area somewhat safely, take over a safer portion of that high traffic area, and let the enemies come to you as you peek over and over perfectly. Not to mention you should be using sound cues to know where the enemies are approaching from and peeking at the right time, and every time you respawn, use the mini-map quickly to see where enemies are around you so you stop dying on your rotation because you know where to watch out for. But remember, if you want to improve, win more gunfights, and get the rank you've always wanted, then check out SkillCapped.com. Link is in the description below. But what do you guys think about using deathmatch as a practice tool and a warm-up in Valorant? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're down there, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn those notification bells on because we here at SkillCapped have a ton more comprehensive premium guides coming your way that you're going to want to stay up to date with so you can stay ahead of the pack. As always, I want to thank you for spending this little bit of your day with us, and I'm Notorious Dub, signing off.